All right, ADHDude here again. Um, I guess in this video, what I want to sort of clue you guys into a little bit is about my personal story, my personal journey. A lot of this is going to go back to the 80s and 90s in my youth, early 2000s, whenever I was in college. I'll try to spare y'all the entire life story. The main thing is, in another video, I've talked about the main archetypes of ADHD personalities. So just a quick recap in case you're coming in on this video fresh. What an archetype is just basically like a stereotype, right? So stereotypical ADHD behaviors and personalities. ADHD is an imbalance in the limbic system. The limbic system controls the way you interact with an environment, inputs and outputs, right? So it's the limbic system processes inputs from your senses, determines how you feel about it, how you're going to respond, and then executes that response. There are 27, as far as we know, components of the limbic system, and there's not even a general consensus on that. So ADHD can be very, very complex. But the 5 stereotypes tend to break up into Winnie the Pooh characters, right? So there's Winnie the Pooh. He's very inattentive, very friendly, very outgoing. Just a good guy. You love him. But then whenever you give him a task, he just shuts down. He's spacey. He forgets. Just foggy-brained. Can never really focus. He does well when he's focused on whenever he's focused on his honeypot, whenever he's doing something that he wants to do, he's got all the energy in the world. Then when you ask him to do something, it's just a slow slide, and right. So that's the Winnie the Pooh type. The other type is Piglet, the constant worrier, the anxious, anxiety. There's Rabbit, who's always preparing for winter. He's going to be prepared just whenever he's got something stuck on his head. He can't let it go, can't let it go, can't let it go. I got to focus on winter, preparing for winter, preparing for winter. I got to get this done, get this done, get this done, get this done. Like, it's the opposite of what people normally think of ADHD. It's where you're hyper-focused, and you can see it with these people where you're like, dude, just let it go, let it go, just let it go, let it go. Like, those, when you find yourself saying that to somebody, that's something that's common in people with ADHD. Not to be confused with, just because somebody can't let something go doesn't mean they're ADHD. But somebody who's excessive about it, borderline OCD but not OCD. If you know people like that, there's your clue. They could be displaying the rabbit type personalities. And then there's Eeyore. Surprisingly, depression and ADHD, they're discovering more and more of a link between the two, because it comes to an imbalance in the neurotransmitters in your brain, including serotonin and dopamine, the feel-good and do-good neurotransmitters, right? So, and then the last one is Tigger. Save that one for last because that's poster child ADHD. Oh my, that guy that just can't shut off. That's the Tigger type, right? So now that we've reviewed those 5 types, let me sort of tell you about how that comes into play. Number one, they're not static. So anybody with ADHD, they're not going to be specifically locked into one and only one of these types. Usually people with ADHD have components of all 5 of these. They can be like Tigger one day and the next day be like Eeyore, right? We've all seen it, somebody who's bouncing off the walls one day and then the next day they're... Right? So, and then there's people who are like Piglet, like the constant worrier. So my personal story and how I got misdiagnosed or went undiagnosed, growing up, my mother was a teacher. She's passed away. So is my father. But growing up, I was a child of a teacher, and so I grew up loving school. I loved it. I loved learning. I loved doing lessons, right? So I was like Rabbit in school. the problem with that is, school performance is one of the major benchmarks for determining if a child's ADHD. So if you are ADHD and you like doing schoolwork, you're screwed. Good luck getting diagnosed. But I did well with learning lessons. I could learn a lesson, I could only hear it once, and it would be forever implanted in my brain. I was always one of the first ones done with my seat work, with my in-class assignments. Homework was a breeze. Projects killed me. Any kind of major project, whenever I got into junior high and high school, just dragged me down. I could never get started on projects. I apologize to everybody I ever went to school with that I was on a project with. I just never could get started. Up until the last minute, whenever it was like due in like 3 hours, and then I would try to do a 6-week project in like the night before. Drove my mother nuts. So yeah, that was where it affected me academically. So, but in the classroom, man, I was rabid. I get it done, I get it done, I get it done, I get it done. I wasn't ever really hyper. Very rarely was I like the Tigger type. But when it came to assignments, I was like rabbit. I was in the band. I played the drums. I focused on drums. I did really, really well on the snare drum. I went to all region, all area, year after year after year. Went to solo and ensemble. I medaled at state. Went to state. So there was that aspect of it. But I was also Winnie the Pooh because I just you could tell me to do anything, like John, go do the dishes, and I wouldn't get it done. Even now, being married, my wife will ask me to do stuff. Case in point, earlier today, she asked me to scan some documents and send them to an attorney. I haven't done it yet. As a matter of fact, I just got a text reminding me to send these documents, and here I am recording a video. So there's that. So yeah, that's sort of the Winnie the Pooh type characteristics. Piglet, let me tell you, whenever I worry about something, I freaking worry. The whole time as an adolescent, I was always curious about piercings, but I'd never wanted to get my ears pierced as a teenager. Back then it was like the 90s growing up. The big thing was just the left ear only, right? So if you're a dude and you're going to do an ear, don't do both ears, do the left ear, because only people that play for the other team do the right ear, right? So this is the straight ear, this is the not straight ear. And don't do both, because then that means you go both ways and you're confused, right? But I didn't want my ear pierced. I wanted my eyebrow pierced. And that was the thing. I wanted to get my eyebrow pierced. And I always just went around and around and around and around and around and never could let it go. I want to get my eyebrow pierced. But the problem was, I didn't want to get my eyebrow pierced without having my ears pierced. But I didn't want to get my ears pierced just for the sake of having my eyebrow pierced. And so around and around it went for years, but from the time I was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then all the way through college. And then next thing I know, I'm out of college and now I'm an adult. No way I could ever get my eyebrow pierced. Of course, now I'm a man pushing 40, like hell I'm ever going to do it. So yeah, that's one of those youthful regrets. But that goes to show how people with ADD can get stuck in an endless loop, an endless cycle. That went on for years, and that's a funny example, but it's not so funny whenever it's a lot more serious and when it has everything to do with adulting and adult responsibilities, like scanning paperwork for attorneys. I really should do that. Remind me. What was the other type? Eeyore. I had a video on another one of my channels where I take a break from my ADHD treatment regime about once a month so I can catch up on rest because it's a stimulant. I'm on stimulant medication and it gets exhausting after a while. So it's about 1 weekend a month. I'll taper off on Friday and I'll just sleep like the dead on Friday and usually through Saturday and through most of Sunday. I'll catch up on sleep and then chug away for another month. And that's when the depression sets in, the Eeyore sets in, and I've made some videos whenever I'm Eeyoring. I'll be sure and include some of those in the future when I'm Eeyoring, when I'm Tiggering. As a matter of fact, right now, I'd say I'm probably Tiggering as I'm making this video. But in any case, what all did I leave out? I think that covers them all. Just basic examples from my life. So yeah, to sum it up, I don't really know where I was going with all of this, except to just tell you about my history. Well, I've done that, so I guess that's it for this video, and we'll see you next time. Like, comment, or subscribe. Thanks.